Assalamualaikum dan salam sejahtera. Saya Najib Aroff dan ini Niaga AWANI. Kita mulakan dengan perkembangan terkini untuk operasi mencari mangsa tanah jelus di Masjid India yang masuk hari ke-8. Kita untuk melihat perincian lanjut, kita bersama dengan wartawan Faida Rahim yang berada di lokasi pada ketika ini. Faida, kita tahu perkembangan terkini setakat 4 pagi tadi gagal untuk pergi ke kawasan backlog tersebut. Setakat pagi ini bagaimana keadaan di kawasan utama tempat kejadian tersebut?
Terima kasih Najib Aroff di studio. Pada pagi ini saya dan rakan-rakan media masih berada di sini. Pasukan mencari dan menyelamat wanita warga India yang hilang dalam insiden tanah jelus di Masjid India dan pasukan ACR setakat ini masih tidak berputus asa meneruskan usaha siang dan malam bagi mencari mangsa. Awal pagi tadi usaha pasukan penyelam Jabatan Bomba dan penyelamat untuk mencari mangsa tanah jelus yang hilang telah melakukan selaman di dalam saluran kumbahan berhampiran lokasi kejadian, sekali lagi menemui jalan buntu. Tinjauan rakan tugas kami, Ridauddin, yang berada di sini pada sehingga jam 3 pagi mendapati 2 penyelam skuba dari Akademi JBPM wilayah utara mula turun ke lubang saluran itu pada jam 4 pagi untuk ke kawasan yang dipercayai terdapat backlog, iaitu kira-kira 44 meter dari lokasi kejadian. Selaman dilakukan selepas pasukan ACR menutup sebahagian saluran dan melencongkan aliran masuk dalam usaha mengurangkan paras air daripada 1.5 meter hingga 0.8 meter di dalam saluran kumbahan, iaitu kaedah yang digunakan sama semalam. Pada 11.20 malam semalam juga, sebuah kren dilihat tiba di lokasi kejadian dan menarik sesuatu dari lubang jelus itu selain menurunkan pam berkuasa tinggi 10,000 dan 20,000 liter untuk mengepam keluar air dari saluran kumbahan tersebut. Bagaimanapun, setelah hampir cubaan setengah jam melakukan selaman, usaha itu sekali lagi membuahkan kehampaan. Setakat ini juga anggota pasukan ACR yang sempat ditemui maklumkan penyelam berdepan cabaran batu dan pasir yang banyak di dalam saluran kumbahan, manakala arus deras menyebabkan usaha untuk ke kawasan backlog semakin sukar. Operasi ACR ditangguhkan pada jam 5 pagi tadi dan dijangka akan bersambung semula sekitar jam 9.30 pagi ini. Ketua Pengarah JBPM, Datuk Nur Hisham Muhammad, berkata sekiranya timbunan itu berjaya dirungkai, keseluruhan permukaan dalam paip kumbahan akan dapat dilihat sebelum pasukan penyelam melaksanakan tugas untuk mencari mangsa. Dalam pada itu, di Kota Baru semalam, Ketua Polis Negara Tan Sri Razaruddin Hussein memaklumkan tiada keperluan untuk mengisytiharkan kawasan Masjid India sebagai zon tidak selamat dan bencana. Kata beliau, untuk mengisytiharkan perkara tersebut, polis perlu mendapatkan kebenaran khas daripada Majlis Keselamatan Negara. Saya kira itu saja perkembangan yang saya dapat bawakan dari lapangan dan saya akan bawakan di buletin seterusnya. Setakat ini sahaja laporan saya. Kita kembali ke studio. Terima kasih, Najib.
Terima kasih Faida atas laporan tersebut, dan kita juga seluruh rakyat Malaysia mendoakan keselamatan untuk pihak berkuasa juga yang bertungkus lumus untuk mencari mangsa pada ketika ini dan semoga dilancarkan segala urusan. Terima kasih Faida. Maybank meraih keuntungan selepas cukai dan kepentingan minoriti Patami lebih tinggi, meningkat sebanyak 9% kepada 5.02 bilion ringgit bagi 6 bulan pertama 2024. Keuntungan sebelum cukai PBT bank keempat terbesar di Asia Tenggara itu berdasarkan aset turut meningkat 7.2% kepada 6.89 bilion ringgit. Menurut kenyataan, Presiden dan Ketua Pegawai Eksekutif Kumpulan Maybank, Datuk Khairul Ramli, beliau berkata keputusan yang membanggakan itu didorong oleh pertumbuhan kukuh dalam pendapatan bukan faedah, hasil daripada fee teras yang lebih tinggi, prestasi insurans yang bertambah baik serta peningkatan dalam perbendaharaan dan keuntungan pasaran. Beliau berkata pendapatan operasi bersih bagi setengah tahun pertama meningkat 9.4% kepada 14.92 bilion ringgit disebabkan terutamanya oleh peningkatan 28.4% dalam NOII kepada 5.15 bilion ringgit dirangsang oleh pertumbuhan kukuh dalam fee teras yang meningkat 16.5%. Sementara itu, Hong Leong Bank mencatatkan peningkatan untung bersih dan hasil masing-masing kepada 4.2 bilion ringgit dan 5.77 bilion ringgit bagi tahun kewangan 2024. Ketua Pegawai Eksekutif dan Pengarah Urusan kumpulannya, Kevin Lam, berkata prestasi tersebut didorong oleh pertumbuhan pinjaman dan pembiayaan, nisbah akaun simpanan akaun semasa (KASA) yang lebih baik, kualiti aset yang sihat serta pembiayaan berhemat dan kedudukan mudah tunai.
Katanya, ini di sebalik cabaran ekonomi makro yang dihadapi tahun lalu. Dalam tempoh yang sama, pendapatan faedah bersih bank itu meningkat 2.6% tahun ke tahun kepada 4.67 bilion ringgit, manakala pendapatan bukan faedahnya meningkat 26.5% kepada 271 juta ringgit, didorong oleh pendapatan yang lebih tinggi daripada yuran pengurusan kekayaan, yuran berkaitan kad kredit dan keuntungan dalam pertukaran asing. Pendapatan bukan faedah pula dicatatkan pada 1.1 bilion ringgit. Bank itu melaporkan perbelanjaan operasi 2.34 bilion ringgit bagi tahun kewangan 2024 yang membawa nisbah kos kepada pendapatannya kepada 40.5%. Pinjaman kasar, pendahuluan dan pembiayaan mengekalkan momentum pertumbuhan 7.3% tahun ke tahun kepada 194.9 bilion ringgit, didorong oleh pengembangan dalam segmen utama iaitu gadai janji, pinjaman kereta, PKS dan perbankan komersial serta pasaran luar negara. Deposit pelanggan pula meningkat 4.1% tahun ke tahun kepada 220.4 bilion ringgit dengan kasa bertumbuh kukuh sebanyak 10% kepada 71.6 bilion ringgit. Susulan prestasi itu, Hong Leong Bank mengisytiharkan dividen akhir sebanyak 43 sen sesaham, menjadikan jumlah dividen bagi tahun tersebut 68 sen sesaham.
Seterusnya, keuntungan bersih tenaga nasional berhad TNB meningkat kepada 1.44 bilion ringgit pada suku kedua berakhir 30 Jun 2024 daripada 327.9 juta ringgit pada suku sama tahun lepas. Kenaikan ini kebanyakannya disebabkan oleh keuntungan operasi lebih tinggi, pertukaran asing yang menggalakkan dan kos kewangan bersih lebih rendah.
Hasil juga meningkat kepada 14.37 bilion ringgit daripada 13.32 bilion ringgit sebelumnya. Hasil jualan elektrik lebih tinggi sebanyak 5.7% atau 745.87 juta ringgit. TNB berkata keuntungan operasinya bagi suku semasa melonjak 19.9% atau 372.5 juta ringgit. Kebanyakannya disebabkan margin bahan api negatif lebih rendah pada suku itu berbanding suku yang sama sebelum ini. Pendapatan sesaham EPS asas pada suku kedua meningkat kepada 24.95 sen daripada 5.70 sen pada suku kedua 2023. Dalam pada itu, TNB telah meluluskan dividen interim satu peringkat sebanyak 25 sen sesaham untuk tahun kewangan berakhir 31 Disember 2024 berjumlah 1.45 bilion ringgit. Tarikh penutupan buku dan pembayaran akan diumumkan dalam masa terdekat. Bagi separuh tahun pertama berakhir 30 Jun 2024, keuntungan bersih TNB melonjak kepada 2.16 bilion ringgit daripada 1.33 bilion ringgit dalam tempoh sama pada 2024, manakala hasil meningkat kepada 28.01 bilion ringgit daripada 25.95 bilion ringgit sebelumnya. Jualan elektrik naik sebanyak 6.8%, memacu pertumbuhan 7.9 dalam hasil TNB. Pertumbuhan permintaan menokok sebanyak 8.4%, kebanyakannya didorong oleh sektor komersial dan domestik. Keuntungan operasi meningkat 8% kepada 4.26 bilion ringgit daripada 3.95 bilion ringgit dalam tempoh yang sama.
Pegawai Perubatan Sektor Awam dijangka menerima berita gembira berhubung semakan semula kadar allowance petugas atas panggilan atau on-call tidak lama lagi. Menteri Kesihatan Datuk Seri Dr. Zulkifli Ahmad turut memberi bayangan perkara itu akan diumumkan ketika pembentangan belanjawan 2025 akan datang.
Malah katanya lagi, perkara itu telah dibincangkan dalam mesyuarat Jemaah Menteri yang lalu dan mendapat reaksi positif Perdana Menteri Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim. Pada 24 Ogos lalu, Dr. Zulkifli dilaporkan berkata cadangan daripada kumpulan harta doktor kontrak berhubung kadar allowance tugas atas panggilan petugas perubatan akan diteliti dan dibawa kepada Perdana Menteri untuk dipertimbangkan. Berhubung isu kekurangan insulin, beliau menambah masyarakat diminta supaya tidak panik dan memberi jaminan tiada pesakit akan dibiarkan pulang dengan tangan kosong. Pesakit akan dibekalkan dengan ubatan diperlukan berdasarkan pemeriksaan pakar perubatan yang merawat mereka. Sebelum ini, Kementerian Kesihatan mengesahkan Malaysia tidak mengalami krisis kekurangan bekalan insulin untuk pesakit dan bekalan semasa mencukupi hingga hujung tahun ini.
Baik, setiap kali menjelang bulan Ogos, Nuraini Saleh, seorang tukang jahit, terpaksa bersengkang mata demi menyiapkan pakaian sempena sambutan ulang tahun Hari Kebangsaan yang bakal diraikan pada Sabtu. Meskipun dia tidak menang tangan melayan tempahan, namun Nuraini menyifatkan sambutan bulan kemerdekaan sebagai bonus tahunan buat dirinya.
Selain baju bertemakan pahlawan Melayu dengan gabungan warna bendera Malaysia, dia juga menggunakan kombinasi tradisional dan moden bagi menghasilkan baju gaun kanak-kanak perempuan. Kata Nuraini, busana yang dihasilkannya turut mengambil kira peredaran fashion semasa dan mengikut cita rasa pengguna masa kini. Menariknya, tahun ini dia juga menerima tempahan rekaan yang menggunakan teknologi kecerdasan buatan AI daripada pelanggan.
Sekarang kan diorang minta daripada design AI. Macam mana design AI itu nak diaplikasikan ke design yang sebenar. Di situ kita kena educate pelanggan, customer dengan penggunaan material, jenis-jenis kita nak guna, design macam mana, nak buat potongan macam mana. Kebanyakannya dari situ kos dia lah, costingnya mahal lah sikit. Ada yang sanggup dan ada yang tak sanggup lah. Nak tengok. Sebab design AI kan cantik-cantik, semua-semua nampak macam wow sekarang lah.
Nuraini memberitahu dia mengekalkan keaslian rekaan-rekaan itu dengan pemilihan warna yang melambangkan jalur gemilang.
Keaslian tu saya tetapkan dengan dari segi warna. Kita kekalkan warna-warna mestilah mengikut color bendera kita, dan keaslian tu dari segi tema-tema. Contohnya tema Cik Siti Wang Kembang, kita kekalkan lagi dia punya tema. Pakaian seperti dress labuh, kita kekalkan dengan pakaian pending, semua macam itulah, aksesori-aksesori yang sepatutnya untuk dipakaikan, diragakan dengan Cik Siti Wang Kembang.
Selain tempahan, Nuraini juga menerima permintaan untuk sewa.
Bila kerja sendiri, semua kena buat sendiri. Tapi, bersama rakan niaga, semuanya dapat ditempuhi bersama.
Kerajaan akan terus mempertahankan setiap inci kedaulatan negara dan tidak sesekali akan bertolak ansur terhadap sebarang tuntutan daripada pihak-pihak tertentu.
Negara perlu mengurangkan kebergantungan kepada pekerja asing berkemahiran rendah.
Pertubuhan Kemanusiaan Antarabangsa Malaysia MHO menggesa Kementerian Kesihatan menjalankan siasatan berhubung dakwaan kewujudan sebuah klinik kosmetik yang dikendalikan doktor palsu di Monkiara.
Anda masih lagi menonton Niaga AWANI bersama saya Najib, Aroff, dan sepanjang minggu ini kita bawakan dan juga sejak beberapa minggu yang lepas kita melihat kepada pengukuhan nilai ringgit dan juga prestasi FBM KLCI di Bursa Malaysia. Bagaimana untuk kita melihat bahawa penutup pada hari Jumaat ini, untuk kita baca keseluruhan data-data ini, saya nak bersama dengan Syed Muhammad Kifni Syed Kamarudin, Ketua Strategi MIDF Research yang bersedia pada ketika ini. Assalamualaikum Kifni, terima kasih kerana bersama dengan kami pada waktu ini. Kita mulakan dengan FBM KLCI. Mungkin prestasi FBM KLCI sepanjang minggu ini, kalau kita lihat ada beberapa faktor yang mungkin mempengaruhi pergerakan pasaran saham. Apa yang boleh dikongsikan untuk prestasi pada minggu ini?
Waalaikumsalam Najib. Terima kasih atas jemputan ke AWANI. Indeks FBM KCI yang mewakili saham-saham syarikat besar-besar naik sehingga melebihi 1,680 mata semalam. Itu tahap tertinggi tahun ini sebelum ditutup pada paras 1,653 atau naik sebanyak lebih 1% sepanjang minggu ini. Itu merupakan lantunan kenaikan 3 minggu berturut-turut setelah mengalami big sell-off atau jualan besar pada awal bulan ini. Namun perlu dinyatakan bahawa prestasi pasaran saham tempatan 2 minggu kebelakangan ini adalah bersifat mix atau bercampur-campur dengan sebahagian indeks-indeks yang lain mengalami penyusutan. Umpamanya indeks IBM 70 yang mewakili saham-saham syarikat besar sederhana mengalami tindakan pengambilan untung sepanjang minggu ini dengan turun sebanyak 3%. Kami lihat pencenggahan pada prestasi indeks-indeks pasaran tempatan tersebut adalah berikutan tindakan para pelabur melakukan rotational play atau putaran menjual pegangan mereka dalam saham-saham syarikat besar sederhana yang telah menunjukkan prestasi kenaikan harga yang lebih baik sepanjang tahun ini dan meningkatkan pegangan dalam saham-saham syarikat besar yang belum menunjukkan kenaikan harga yang banyak. Dan oleh itu dilihat mempunyai valuation atau nilaian yang lebih menarik. Kerana sekiranya diukur dari sudut prestasi year to date atau tempoh sepanjang tahun ini, indeks PM70 masih mendahului dengan kenaikan hampir 18% berbanding indeks PM KLCI yang naik hampir 14%. Dan indeks pasaran saham antarabangsa di Wall Street Market Syarikat juga menunjukkan prestasi yang bercampur-campur sepanjang minggu ini. Indeks Dow Jones yang mewakili saham-saham syarikat besar mencatat kenaikan ke paras rekod tertinggi pada tahap 41,300 mata pada penutup malam tadi. Namun indeks Nasdaq yang mewakili syarikat pertumbuhan atau growth companies terutama dalam sektor berkaitan teknologi maklumat IT boleh mengalami kejatuhan lebih 2% sepanjang minggu ini akibat aktiviti pengambilan untung. Kami menilai bahawa faktor yang menyumbang kepada rebound atau lantunan kenaikan indeks utama di pasaran saham antarabangsa dan juga tempatan telah mengalami jualan ketara pada awal bulan ini adalah berikutan kembalinya keyakinan para pelabur bahawa ekonomi Amerika Syarikat masih dijangka akan mengalami pertumbuhan positif dan juga result kesetuan Amerika Syarikat akan menurunkan kadar faedah secara bersiri bermula bulan September ini. Dan prospek penurunan kadar faedah dolar Amerika telah mendorong pelabur untuk menjual dolar Amerika dan membeli mata wang yang lain termasuk ringgit. Sepanjang bulan ini saja, nilai ringgit telah mengukuh hampir 7% banding dolar Amerika kepada 4.3. Dan pengukuhan nilai ringgit ini pula telah mendorong kemasukan dana asing ke pasaran kewangan tempatan. Semenjak hampir 3 minggu lalu, pelabur asing telah mencatatkan nilai belian bersih sekitar 2.8 bilion ringgit di dalam pasaran saham tempatan. Itu adalah antara sebab menyumbang kepada lantunan kenaikan harga di pasaran saham tempatan setelah kejatuhan ketara awal bulan.
Kalau kita melihat kepada FBM KLCI ataupun FBM 70 ini, apa mungkin counter ataupun sektor mana yang mungkin mendahului dari segi prestasinya dan juga yang mengalami mungkin kejatuhan juga sepanjang minggu ini?
Sepanjang minggu ini hanya 3 daripada 13 sektor didagang pada tahap yang lebih tinggi. Indeks sektor perkhidmatan kewangan, financial services, mencatat kenaikan tertinggi melebihi 2% sepanjang minggu ini. Sektor perkhidmatan kewangan juga mencatatkan kenaikan tertinggi sepanjang bulan Ogos ini, melebihi 7%. Minat para pelabur dalam sektor perkhidmatan kewangan, khususnya saham-saham perbankan, adalah berikutan keputusan kewangan yang baik dan juga prospek pertumbuhan aset subur jangkaan perkembangan ekonomi makro negara yang mempan. Di samping itu, nilaian saham-saham perkhidmatan kewangan masih berada di tahap yang menarik. Para pelabur asing adalah pembeli terbesar saham-saham perkhidmatan kewangan sepanjang bulan Ogos ini dengan mencatatkan nilai belian bersih melebihi 3 bilion ringgit. Manakala sektor teknologi mengalami kejatuhan terbesar melebihi 7% sepanjang minggu ini. Kejatuhan indeks ini adalah seiring kejatuhan saham-saham teknologi di Wall Street dan ditambah pula oleh faktor pengukuhan ringgit berbanding dolar Amerika kerana jualan ekspor barangan teknologi lazimnya didenominasi dalam dolar Amerika. Oleh itu penyusutan nilai dolar Amerika boleh mencecahkan revenue atau hasil dalam nilai ringgit.
Okey, akhir sekali ni mungkin boleh melihat kepada jangkaan hala tuju pergerakan pasaran saham untuk masa terdekat.
Dalam masa terdekat, indeks ABM KLCI dijangka akan mengalami konsolidasi setelah mengalami lantunan kenaikan 3 minggu berturut-turut. Konsolidasi harga saham itu dilihat sebagai base building process atau proses pembinaan dasar sebelum ABM KLCI dijangka melakukan lonjakan semula dengan resistance level atau paras rintangan dianggap pada tahap 1,700 mata. Dan kemudiannya pada suku akhir tahun ini, kami jangka akan berlakunya lonjakan seterusnya kenaikan KLCI kepada 1,750 mata. Ianya yang didorong oleh faktor positif dalaman seperti kemampanan ekonomi tempatan dan prospek keuntungan korporat. Juga faktor luaran seperti penurunan kadar faedah oleh Reserve Pasaran Amerika, trend pengukuhan mata wang ringgit berbanding dolar Amerika dan aliran kemasukan dana asing ke dalam pasaran tempatan. Dan seperti yang dinyatakan semasa saya hadir dalam program yang sama di AWANI pada bulan Julai lepas, kami menjangkakan bahawa KLCI akan mencapai tahap 1,750 mata pada tahun ini. Jangkaan ini berdasarkan pada nilaian di munasabah. Walaupun pada tahap 1,750 mata, price earning ratio atau nisbah harga pendapatan bagi ABM KLCI diukur pada tahap hampir 16 kali, iaitu di bawah historical average atau rata 16.5 kali.
Okey, Syed Kifni, terima kasih kerana membantu kami untuk memahami kedudukan pasaran bergerak sepanjang minggu ini dan juga kita nanti kepada minggu hadapan. Terima kasih kerana bersama kami dan kami akan rangkumkan di laman web kami astroawani.com.
Boom Group Production Sdn Berhad dan Celcom DG Berhad menjalin kerjasama strategik menyepadukan ketersambungan 5G, kecerdasan buatan AI dan realiti lanjutan XR dengan kejituan teknologi pertanian. Perkongsian tersebut merupakan langkah maju ke hadapan dalam mengguna pakai teknologi maju untuk meningkatkan amalan kelestarian pertanian dan pengeluaran makanan di Malaysia. Amanah Raya Real Estate Investment Trust Amanah Raya REIT mengumumkan pembelian aset pendidikan swasta pada harga RM31.4 juta di Glen Mary, Shah Alam. Pembelian itu yang dibuat melalui pemegang amanahnya Pacific Trustees Berhad merupakan langkah strategik bagi meningkatkan portfolio Amanah Raya REIT sebagai pelopor REIT dalam sektor pendidikan. Data Sonic Group Berhad, salah satu penyedia penyelesaian ICT bersepadu berkaitan keselamatan yang paling terkemuka di Malaysia, mencatatkan keuntungan bersih sebanyak RM27 juta bagi suku pertamanya untuk tempoh berakhir 30 Jun 2024. Ini mewakili peningkatan sebanyak 42% tahun ke tahun daripada RM19 juta pada suku sama tahun sebelumnya, dirangsang oleh kecekapan operasi yang lebih tinggi yang dicapai di samping faktor-faktor yang dinyatakan di atas. Data Sonic mencatatkan hasil sebanyak RM90.8 juta pada suku pertamanya untuk tempoh berakhir 30 Jun 2024, peningkatan 7% tahun ke tahun daripada RM84.8 juta pada suku yang sama tahun sebelumnya. Laporan penuh di saluran 501 dan astroawani.com serta dagangnews.com.
Okey, kita ingin melihat kepada prestasi ringgit Malaysia setakat pada pembukaan pada pagi ini selepas apa yang kita buat komen tadi sebentar tadi. Ringgit untuk pagi ini kalau boleh saya bawakan kedudukannya berbanding dengan dolar Amerika Syarikat sudah pasti semakin mengukuh setakat pada 30 Ogos 2024 ini. Kalau kita lihat kepada keadaannya sekitar 4.31 ya pada pagi ini, 4.31 tidak silap saya 35. 4.30 setakat pada pagi ini, tetapi pada sebelum ini kita menyaksikan pada April dan sebagainya ini sekitar 4.79. Januari ataupun Februari juga kita menyaksikan tempoh yang sama. Sebelum itu juga kita menyaksikan ringgit yang agak melemah dari segi perbandingan dengan dolar Amerika Syarikat, dan sudah pasti apabila apa yang berlaku di Amerika Syarikat pada ketika ini ia memberikan sedikit ruang kelegaan kepada ringgit tempatan kerana apa yang disaksikan di Amerika Syarikat, data-data ekonomi mereka mengiyakan tindakan seterusnya oleh The Fed sendiri untuk mengurangkan kadar dana mereka, kiranya macam OPR lah kalau kat Malaysia ni, untuk mereka potong bermula September. Berapa kali mereka akan potong sehingga bergerak ke hadapan, itu persoalan besar yang kita nantikan, dan kekerapan pemotongan tersebut, jeda masa untuk mereka potong tersebut. Sekiranya dilakukan secara berturut-turut bermula September kepada mesyuarat seterusnya pada Januari dan seterusnya, ini akan memberikan sokongan yang lebih kukuh kepada nilai ringgit disebabkan oleh pelabur yang akan kembali ke pasaran membangun termasuk juga Malaysia. Dan ini juga akan menentukan kedudukan kita dari segi ekspor kita, nilai ekonomi kita dan juga import kita juga. Kerana import ini kita faham, apabila kita bayar dalam dolar sebagai contoh, semakin lemah nilai ringgit tersebut, semakin banyak nilai ringgit terpaksa kita keluarkan. Maka dengan pengukuhan ringgit ini sudah pasti, ini akan memberikan sedikit keringanan dari segi nilai dan kos import kita sendiri, dan akhirnya inflasi di import itu mungkin tidak akan diterjemahkan kepada harga di pasaran. Walaupun realitinya mungkin agak tak nampak realiti seperti itulah kan. Tapi itu juga kita perlu urungkan dari masa ke masa. Bukan sahaja berbanding dengan dolar Amerika Syarikat kita tengah lihat, ringgit berbanding dengan dolar Singapura. Ini penting sekali sebab ramai rakyat kita bekerja di Singapura, ramai juga rakyat Malaysia datang ke Malaysia sebagai contoh. Setakat pada pagi ini kalau kita lihat, ringgit masih lagi mengukuh berbanding dengan dolar Singapura. Setakat pagi ini sekitar saya kira adalah pada 3.3145 berbanding dengan dolar Singapura setakat pada pagi pembukaan 9 pagi ini. Ini agak kukuh ya untuk ringgit, kira dah hampir kembali kepada nilai normal yang kita saksikan sebelum ini, setahun yang sudah. Kalau kita lihat ringgit pernah agak melemah berbanding dengan dolar Singapura pada Februari, sama juga macam dolar Amerika tadi, sekitar Februari adalah 3.56, sekarang 3.31. Ini adalah menunjukkan pengukuhan nilai ringgit dari masa ke masa dan juga mencerminkan hubungan dagang kita yang mungkin lebih stabil dengan Singapura, kerana Singapura merupakan rakan dagang antara yang utama dengan Malaysia ini selain daripada China dan juga Amerika Syarikat sendiri. Okey, itu kedua-dua soal ringgit. Saya juga ingin melihat kepada bursa Malaysia. Kalau kita lihat kepada FBM KLCI yang juga kita bincangkan sebentar tadi, FBM KLCI setakat pada pembukaan sekitar pagi tadi 9.12 minit pagi tadi berada pada 1657.29 mata, peningkatan 3.74 mata ataupun 0.23%. Okey, sudah pasti FBM KLCI ini hanya mengukur 30 kaunter-kaunter mewah, kaunter berwajaran tinggi. Kita juga ingin melihat kepada kaunter FBM 70 seperti yang kita bincangkan tadi, yang ini adalah yang mana market capitalization ataupun pemodalan pasaran. Kaunter tersebut adalah bersifat sederhana ataupun medium, juga positif setakat pagi ini, tapi ini juga mencerminkan tahap keyakinan pelabur mungkin akan kembali. Cuma apa yang dibincangkan dengan Kifni sebentar tadi, mungkin konsolidasi akan berlaku di Bursa Malaysia melalui FBM KLCI, kerana kita melihat bahawa nilai yang tinggi ini mungkin akan berlaku pada minggu hadapan, konsolidasi yang akan menyebabkan kadar yang lebih mendata pada minggu depan, sama ada itu ada realitinya ataupun sebaliknya, kita nantikan kerana ada banyak faktor yang akan mempengaruhi kedudukan Bursa Malaysia bergerak ke hadapan. Dan sudah pasti kita ingin melihat juga pasaran Asia. Setakat pada pagi ini, pasaran Asia ada dua perkara kita perlu lihat. Pertama sekali, apa yang diukur oleh indeks di Asia Dow Index yang disediakan oleh Dow Jones sendiri, yang mengukur saham-saham blue chip ataupun saham-saham berwajaran tinggi di Asia ini. Ini adalah datanya sama macam FBM KCI, cuma ini di peringkat Asia, 4,247.21 setakat pagi ini pembukaan dengan 31.54 mata peningkatan dan 0.75% peningkatan dari segi peratusannya, dan ini agak positif berbanding dengan semalam. Semalam agak negatif sedikit, tetapi kalau kita lihat perinciannya, adakah semua ini positif hijau pada pagi ini? Agak bercampur-campur juga, tapi keseluruhan yang utama di pasaran Asia ini agak berwarna hijau dan juga positif. Contohnya Nikkei 225 pada pagi ini meningkat 147 mata lebih sikit, hampir 149 mata, 48 mata dengan 0.39% peningkatan. Begitu juga dengan Hang Seng Index sendiri, kita lihat peningkatan hampir kepada 94 mata kepada 0.53%, dan juga sudah pasti Shanghai Composite Index di China sendiri ada sedikit penurunan 14.32 mata ataupun 0.50%. Di Korea Selatan, Kaoosji di bawah sekali ini, Kospi kita melihat agak berwarna hijau, maksudnya positif lah, ada peningkatan pada pagi ini 17.26 mata ataupun 0.64%. Ini adalah antara indeks-indeks utama yang kita lihat yang membentuk pasaran Asia, dan ini menunjukkan bahawa positif untuk hari terakhir dagangan pada hari ini, dan cerminannya kepada bagaimana ia akan dipengaruhi oleh pergerakan pasaran di Dow Jones di Amerika Syarikat juga sehinggalah bergerak kepada minggu hadapan. Itu juga kita akan rungkaikan untuk pasaran Asia. Okey, kita akan berhenti rehat seketika. Kita akan kembali selepas ini dengan diskusi berkaitan dengan usaha kita untuk menarik masuk pelaburan di Malaysia dan prestasinya setakat ini.
Pengendali rangkaian pasar mini terbesar di Malaysia, 99 Speedmart Retail Holdings Berhad, mengumumkan tawaran awam permulaan IPO telah terlebih langganan sebanyak 3.04 kali. Syarikat tersebut berkata 49,354 permohonan untuk 678.58 juta saham IPO telah diterima, menghasilkan kadar melebihi langganan keseluruhan sebanyak 3.04 kali. Binastra Corporation Berhad menerusi Binastra Builders Sdn Berhad memperoleh kontrak bernilai 155.01 juta ringgit daripada Green Earth Landmark Sdn Berhad bagi mereka bentuk dan membina loji rawatan kumbahan di Sri Hartamas, Kuala Lumpur. Menerusi kontrak itu, mereka akan membina loji rawatan kumbahan jenis Membrane Biological Reactor MBR bagi populasi 160,000 orang di bawah cadangan pembangunan semula tapak loji rawatan kumbahan di lot 48666 dan 48664. Hasil Steelhawk Berhad bagi 6 bulan berakhir 30 Jun 2024 meningkat kepada 39.03 juta ringgit berbanding 32.18 juta ringgit bagi tempoh sama tahun sebelumnya, didorong peningkatan tempahan kerja dalam semua segmen perniagaan. Kumpulan itu berkata peningkatan itu termasuk pesanan kerja baharu daripada Petronas Carigali bagi penggantian dan penyelenggaraan pintu kebakaran termodular bagi bangunan luar pesisir dan pemeriksaan saluran paip untuk tong perangkap tolok pemeriksaan. Laporan penuh di saluran 501 dan Astro AWANI.com serta dagangnews.com.
Penyasaran subsidi diesel di Semenanjung tidak akan memberi kesan kepada harga barangan keperluan di Sabah, Sarawak dan Labuan.
660 individu berusia bawah 21 tahun di Sarawak telah diberikan kewarganegaraan.
Sarawak kini menjalinkan kerjasama dengan Bank Dunia dalam menjayakan perdagangan karbonnya.
Malaysia sebenarnya berada di kedudukan kedua terburuk di dunia berkaitan keseimbangan hidup dan kerja.
LRT3 sudah akan mula beroperasi suku ketiga 2025. Kerja-kerja fizikal dan penstrukturan sudah mencecah 95%.
KPM sebenarnya sedang memperincikan cadangan untuk menyediakan allowance kos sara hidup tingkatan 6.
Melibat urus antara umat Islam dan agama lain penting supaya dapat mengelakkan ataupun membawa kepada Islamofobia.
Dia tak kisah, Aris tak boleh nampak macam orang biasa.
Dua hati dipertemukan. Dia jatuh hati kat budak buta tu kot.
Saya betul-betul suka kat awak. Aku happy dia jadi boyfriend kau.
Aris, saya dapat promotion. Saya takkan ambil kerja-kerja yang jauh dengan awak.
Okey ke? Dia langsung tak bagi dia fikir betul-betul dulu. Takutlah satu hari nanti dia menyesal.
Sekarang ni awak yang penting. Saya nak stay bersama dengan awak. Cukup.
Kalau satu hari awak rasa dah tak cukup macam mana?
Apakah suratan takdir mereka? Dari mata turun ke hati. Di Astro Ria dan Astro Go.
Welcome back in Niaga AWANI. InvestKL has successfully secured 3.3 billion ringgit in investments, creating over 3,000 high-value regional jobs through the establishment of 6 global services hub. And of course, these investments secured amidst the global challenges, as we all know, and reaffirm Greater Kuala Lumpur or Greater KL's appeal as a top investment destination, and bolstered by countries' ease of doing business, one thing, and robust infrastructure, and also skilled talent pool and vibrant ecosystem driven by collaboration and also innovation. And for the record, Malaysia also recorded an impressive first quarter 2024 investment progress of 83.7 billion ringgit, a 13% increase over the same period last year, and of course of which 47 or 39.3 billion ringgit are from the services sector, marking a shift towards service-oriented investments. And joining me to discuss further on this is Dato' Muhammad Azmi Zulkifli, CEO of InvestKL. Dato', thank you so much for joining us. Now, first of all, let's talk about the economy first before we deep dive into the InvestKL performance. Malaysia's growth, if you look at second quarter, 5.9%, but the first half is positive, of course. And as we do the recording right now, our inflation is pretty much manageable at 2% in July. And how does this economic trajectory basically translate into more inflow of foreign direct investments, FDI, into the country?
Yes, 2024 is interesting, where we see many of the foundations, fundamentals, as well as policies that were laid out from 2023 are into context or coming online in 2024. We see a robust economy, we see a robust infrastructure that has developed, and we see a steady talent pool growing in that respect. The second quarter GDP was good, and that really shows the contribution of investments, either foreign as well as domestic investments in the country, on the back of other activities in these areas. Now, we would also good to mention to see that Malaysia have also focused on a number of industries. A number of policies have also been in place to set the stage towards the next 3 to 5 years. And I guess that would provide a lot more certainty to investors when they assess Malaysia as a location for investment.
Of course, I need to ask this first, because when we said about attracting all these investments, they're coming in big numbers. The big questions people would ask is our talent pool. Do we have enough in the pipeline to cater to all in these investments, especially in Kuala Lumpur?
Yeah. Over in Kuala Lumpur today, we see that natural talent would converge in this location. Over and above that, we have a number of public-private institutions of higher learning that are also contributing to that talent flow. Same time, there is also a convergence of local talent and foreign students coming in to create that whole ecosystem into the country. When we talk about investments, it is certainly to look at how companies can come in, ease in themselves, to look at the fresh graduates pipeline, to look at the experienced talent pool, and also the C-suites that they are also part of the whole ecosystem of activities. We have seen positive movements. When I say positive movements, previously our data shows that since 2011, C-suites will usually be held by an expatriate. But over time today, we are seeing C-suites, 80% of them are Malaysians. They are moving up the value chain. Middle management of the C-suites are also being posted overseas so that they come back into the country to lead, to hold leadership roles. And when we look at that too, multinational companies, investors have put in a lot of emphasis to work with academia to build the talent pipeline. That is commendable, because it's not just about talent not available, it's also about wanting to fine-tune them to fit the industry and the culture of the company.
Get them ready of what industry has to offer, basically. But let's talk about the InvestKL in terms of your strategy. we have few economic policies that are in place and running currently. For instance, we have NIMP, New Industrial Master Plan, and of course we have the High Growth, High Value, HGHV, and also an ETR. How does the Invest KL's strategy aligned with all this economic framework and also policies?
For Greater Kuala Lumpur, the focus is to look at high-value, high-tech investments. When we talk about high-value, high-tech investments, this would largely focus on investments in the services sector, or we term it the modern services. We are not saying that we do not want investments that are more land-intensive. That would be best outside of Greater Kuala Lumpur, meaning spillover, positive spillover to other states. Yes. Yeah? The National Investment Master Plan, NIMP, the NETR, the National Energy Transition Roadmap, gives a number of emphasis that investors would be curious to explore. Yeah? When we lay out NIMP, there was a clear definition of the industries that we wanted to focus on, which also means the work that will be done within the industry at the small medium enterprise level, at the academia level, at the R&D and innovation level as well. So those are going deeper into the industry areas. We know the energy transition commitment, and that's also something that investors look at as a potential for growth, as an area of opportunity, and at the same time, hovering all this, continuing to position Greater Kuala Lumpur as that regional location for them to launch their activities anywhere else, whether in Southeast Asia or in Asia Pacific.
Of course, Malaysia has been, making significant strides in attracting investments such as data centers, and we have also digital investments and semiconductors, of course. Are we on the right track in terms of positioning Malaysia and Greater Kuala Lumpur as well as a leading investment destinations? And what about the other neighbouring countries that are also competitive in that sense?
True. When Malaysia says that our focus is on semiconductor, electrical, electronics, or even data centers for that matter, it also says that we are not ignoring every other industry. Every other industry would have a niche or a pocket of its own to grow and to support the whole ecosystem of activities. The semiconductor needs support from every other industry as well. To come together, to put into all the activities as well as grow in that instance. What we see across the country as well are pockets of activities or investments that are skewed or focused towards those type of focus investments, right? Over time, the development of infrastructure, the development and deepening of talent, as well as positive policies implemented by Malaysia and ensuring market access has really provided that confidence. When an investor comes in, they know that they can have market access not just to Malaysia and Southeast Asia, but beyond to other countries in the world. So that's an important positioning, and as we continue to grow that front, it also helps with the whole ecosystem of public as well as private to support the agenda of growing those investments.
And of course, one of the many challenges that the investors, FDI or DDI face is the red tape. This is something that is an ongoing process, and we try to improve year by year. But how do you see the whole situation? Where are we right now in terms of improving our ease of doing business, not just for FDI but for DDI as well?
Yeah. The ease of doing business is certainly something that we cannot just be happy with the position or the situation. Traditionally, in country, we have 3 levels of approval: the federal, the state, as well as the local council. Yeah? Today, working with other agencies across the Ministry of Investment, Trade and Industry as well, we were identifying areas where the red tapes can be cut, where certain definitions can be simplified. And the definitions needs to be across the ministries too. Yeah? When we say that, is like this. When an investment comes in, it is probably an investment in the agriculture sector. However, from the investment side, it will be handled by MITI as a ministry. and the need for support from Ministry of Agriculture. So that alignment needs to be in place, and that definition needs to be in place. Same time, we have also set up, the country and the government have also set up one-stop centers to facilitate licensing, renewals, and so on. And it must be lauded, the positive movements in on the immigration front, towards visa-free approach, towards easing those type of processes. This will entail, gives that positive feeling among expatriates, positive feeling among foreign investors, and how they could put all those things into context. This should also then be linked toward direct investment, I mean domestic investment, right? It's not just about foreign investors. Foreign investors will grow when domestic investors grows as well. It has to be hand in hand, because the key to having the supply chain spillover in Malaysia, working with small medium enterprises to support the whole business community as they move forward.
Let's talk about the achievement by Invest KL, 3.3 billion ringgit in the first half of 2024. Of course, there's a good contribution to the nation's FDI milestone. Can you provide more insights on the number of 3.3 billion and what types of investments that have been secured?
Yeah, the first half of the year was interesting, where we saw companies coming in or interested parties coming in asking a number of questions. Policy certainty was one question. The geopolitical balance is another question that's on top of the agenda. Plus, the fears of new tariffs being put in place were also part of the whole conversation. That's where we saw companies that have grown, and in this instance, the 3.3 billion was an investment that I must say is very balanced across investments from America, from China, as well as from Europe. You could see one investor completely relocating their engineering hub from another location, a regional hub, into Kuala Lumpur. That is a significant movement, with that company being in that other location for the past 30 years. So that's a big movement there. You could see companies that are also in the data center space coming into Greater KL, setting up activities that would serve the region, not just Malaysia as a country, but serving the region. We see company that is enabling the ecosystem. When I say enabling an ecosystem, a prominent international recruitment firm coming in to establish their regional hub in Greater Kuala Lumpur, to certainly have that ecosystem connection with multinationals coming in, talent mobility, having expertise in respective industries, which also gives a lot of positive image towards the country. The other one that I like to mention also is a company that does food labeling. They have been in the country doing manufacturing over 20 years now. However, when looking at the regional hub, they were looking at Greater KL, and they established their regional hub in Greater KL. And they are proud to say that this is their first regional hub focusing on activities in finance, HR, IT, first outside of America. So that's a significant moving up the value chain for their investments in the country. So all in all, it was a good balance of geopolitical areas, a good balance of activities, not just heavy industry, but also in the IT sector, and a good balance of talent capture. It's not just leaning towards engineering, it's also having all the other disciplines put in place.
Dato', help us to understand as well, what kind of narrative do we put out there, and how do we sell ourselves for InvestKL especially, other than the other locations or other countries as well? Because I want to talk about the inclusive growth, because people people think that if the investment comes from China, they have to bring their talent pool, and from America they have to bring expatriates and all that. But is that the case? And what kind of narrative do we sell? Do they have to follow certain rules when investing in Malaysia?
Yeah, this is where when an investor explores a location, we need to have a balance of policy plus flexibility. When I say that, companies exploring has setting up their regional hub in Greater KL does not have any particular condition. When I say particular condition, for example, you must hire X number of Malaysian and you can only be allowed to bring X number of expats. You must not just use foreign content, you must also use local content in that respect. However, for multinational companies, when they expand, they know that for them to be successful, for them to be able to sustain in a particular location, they need to integrate with the ecosystem. Gone are the days that you come in, you parachute X number of people, 100 people, and you operate from that sense. Why we say that is because it's not a sustainable model. If you bring in 100 expats, you need to provide housing, schooling, and all sorts of other allowances. Right? For a company to be sustainable, they would strike a balance between local plus foreign. And over time, we see that 90% of the jobs are occupied by Malaysians, leaving maybe a CFO, which will be an expat. Right? So that's the balance that we see. Same time, integration to the supply chain. What does it mean if you just come in and bring your whole supply chain with you instead of integrating locally? Because when you integrate locally, a company can leverage on the free trade agreements that Malaysia has. Right. That's very important. The third part that I would give credit to is to integrate with the talent. We have a very diverse talent, a very culturally advanced talent as well, and that would certainly help companies in their expansion plan. When they wanted to expand in Asia Pac, when they wanted to expand to the Middle East, the integration from Malaysia is much greater in that respect. When we look at that too, we know that today Greater Kuala Lumpur has about 8 million people. And majority of them, I must say, are people who migrate from outside of Kuala Lumpur, from the states in the north, in the east, and in the south as well, including myself. So, and these are people who just coming here to have a living, to improve their economic condition, and at the same time not forgetting their roots from whichever state they are coming from. So I see that as an inclusive development from Greater Kuala Lumpur, with positive spillover all throughout the country. Okay,
my final questions, because we're going to be the chairman of ASEAN next year, so certainly this is the door of opportunity for Invest KL and also other region as well. But how do you see that being the chairman of ASEAN would open the door to attract more policies, and what kind of narrative we should put forth in terms of attracting more FDIs and more DDIs to come into Invest KL, Greater KL, and also other region as well?
Yeah, the chairmanship of ASEAN is timely. When we say timely, it's because our economy have progressed significantly. This is reflected in the stock market. This is also reflected in the currency, the improvement of the currency. And this is the time for Malaysia to define on the ASEAN as well as global map what are the focus or what are the direction for ASEAN moving forward, right? And defining that would certainly provide companies, investors that bit of certainty of what ASEAN wanted to be. The mobility of ASEAN, the improved of the logistics and supply chain within ASEAN, and how that can be a positive impact towards the whole area. Leveraging on the free trade agreements that ASEAN has, to also access markets abroad. That's an also important element as we build all these topics moving forward. Putting all that together, looking at ASEAN as not just the next biggest economy of the world, but having the position to also access many other markets. And that's where companies are looking at, investors are looking at how to access. Not to forget, with chairmanship of ASEAN is also to position our local businesses, our local industries, to position them with smart partnerships with foreign countries, to have placements of activities, to increase the activities in R&D and innovation, and to a certain extent as well, address or to look at how we can grow the energy transition decision or discussions for ASEAN finding a solution moving forward.
Okay. Lastly, do you already have your target for second half of attracting investment in terms of numbers, dollar and cents might be, and also next year?
The first half of the year is certainly an optimistic result, but we continue to drive the capabilities of what can be done in the second half. Right? The markets have improved, and the currency has also improved, and this is where we see that we are optimistic that we could get a lot more investments, quality as well, to integrate with the industries that Malaysia focused on, to integrate with the capabilities of our talent, and to also be supportive of the infrastructure that we have for the whole of Malaysia.
All right, Dato', thank you so much for joining us at this time. Dato' Muhammad Azmi Zulkifli, CEO of Invest KL, and we wish all the best for second quarter and also full year 2024, and also next year 2025 when we become the chairman of ASEAN.
Kita bersama berpadu, segenap dimensi, meraihkan Hari Kebangsaan.
Satu dekad penuh gemilang, sepak takraw kini kembali penuh dengan aksi mendebarkan. Dapatkan tiket anda sekarang. Pelanggan Astro juga boleh memenangi tiket di aplikasi My Astro. Jangan lepas peluang keemasan ini.
It's been a simply breathtaking tournament. All the drama, surprises, and storylines we've come to expect from this final major of the year.
We're set, ready, play.
He got it and hit it around the net post for a winner. Sensational tennis.
These guys are treating us. You gotta fight for the right to party.
The US Open, live on SPO TV.
Malaysia sebenarnya berada di kedudukan kedua terburuk di dunia berkaitan keseimbangan hidup dan kerja.
LRT3 sudah akan mula beroperasi suku ketiga 2025. Kerja-kerja fizikal dan penstrukturan sudah mencecah 95%.
KPM sebenarnya sedang memperincikan cadangan untuk menyediakan allowance kos sara hidup tingkatan 6.
Libat urus antara umat Islam dan agama lain penting supaya dapat mengelakkan ataupun membawa kepada Islamofobia.
Di dalam setiap berita yang dibawa, konteks amat penting. Cara kita mendapat berita kian berubah. Melalui media sosial maupun saluran digital yang lain serta kaca TV. Kami sentiasa membawakan yang tergempar dan terkini.
Kita buat sesuatu yang berbeza.
Berteraskan acuan verifikasi yang diamalkan supaya setiap fakta adalah sahih. Daripada analisis pelbagai sudut yang mendalam, laporan-laporan khas dan perbincangan yang membina negara. Inklusif, suara rakyat kami ajukan. Keseimbangan persepsi kami pastikan. Kerana setiap cerita mempunyai impak yang tersendiri dan perlu dibawa dengan penelitian yang terperinci. Pastikan Astro AWANI menjadi pilihan anda tidak kira di mana sahaja anda berada. Saluran berita paling dipercayai di Malaysia.
Assalamualaikum. Waalaikumsalam. Bye.
Tolong ya. Aku pun nak balik. Tapi kalau tak tolong, kena kutuk pula nanti.
Hei. Kenapa ni sayang?
Selamat. Semua Tira buat rasa tak betul, Mak. Tira dah tak rasa confident dengan suara Tira.
Tira dulu penuh dengan keyakinan. Apa yang Tira nak, Tira akan cuba juga dapatkan. Kembalikan keyakinan. Sayang?
Betul apa Mak cakap. Aku harus bebas jadi diri sendiri. Harus yakin agar merdeka dari fikiran negatif. Kebebasan haruslah bermula daripada diri sendiri.
Hello and welcome to Niaga Spotlight with me, Tehmina Kaoosji. Niaga Spotlight goes through the week in business and future affairs. Market watch, industries, analysis and insights. We've got you covered right here on Niaga Spotlight. Well, this week on analysis, we're taking a deep dive into Malaysia's healthcare tourism sector. So a couple of quick facts to just establish the landscape before we move forth. Malaysia's healthcare tourism sector was worth about 2.25 billion ringgit in revenue in 2023. Economic spillover was anticipated at being at a record 9.6 billion ringgit. So it's quite clear the numbers show that we are progressing steadily towards emerging as a leading global healthcare destination, hopefully by 2025, which also happens to be just a year before the completion right now of the Malaysia Healthcare Travel Industry Blueprint 2021 to 2025. The mandate, of course, is to have Malaysia as the best Malaysia healthcare travel experience. And according to the Malaysia Healthcare Travel Council, or MHTC, which is an agency under the Ministry of Health, MOH, which stated that the country recorded close to 600,000 health tourist arrivals only for the first half of 2024. Now, MHTC also said that in comparison, Malaysia recorded more than 1 million total health tourist arrivals in 2023, which was once again up by a significant 15% from just 850,000 in 2022, which was also, of course, then related back to pandemic-related travel restrictions. So there is a great opportunity right now to discuss the role of public and private sector stakeholders within the healthcare travel ecosystem in not just maintaining but also expanding the Malaysian medical healthcare tourism sector. None other than Dr. Muhammad Ali Abu Bakar, CEO with the Malaysia Healthcare Travel Council, MHTC, joining me now in the studios for this very insightful discussion. Dr. Ali, good morning. Thank you so much for being with us here today. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you very much, Tehmina, for granting me this opportunity to have a chat with you on this matter.
Fantastic. I think it's extremely timely. We are already moving into the Q4 of 2024. So let's lay the landscape. And with the latest figures showing that we are doing very well indeed revenue-wise, tell me a little bit more about what this indicates from MHTC's perspective about the overall progress on the blueprint.
So I think, as you rightly pointed out, we have a blueprint which was done to chart the course of health tourism from the year 2021 to 2025, right? We are now at the midpoint of the blueprint. Very surprisingly, last year, as you rightly pointed out again, we hit a number of 2.25 billion when it comes to health tourist revenue. So these are the actual revenue contributed by each of the hospitals. So it's not a speculation, it's not a assumption.
Hard facts and figures,
facts.
Yes.
So the multiplier effect of which you mentioned, 9.6, is actually be times by 4. So those components which is associated services of health tourism, for example, accommodation, for example, relating to their logistics, their travel, right? The food they eat, maybe they do some shopping. That's an estimate. Hopefully we can somehow garner some proper data to actually justify how much it contributes to the economy. So what we have seen is, from that 2.25 billion, the number of tourists is 1.4 million. 1.4 million people came to Malaysia, plus their relatives. It's not including their relatives. Each patient who comes usually brings around 3 to 4 people accompanying with them.
Especially somebody who is a patient or potentially going into the medical system, they have to be accompanied usually.
They have to be accompanied.
Sure.
So health tourism is a bit unique. Imagine a person who's not feeling well, right? And they feel that when they're not feeling well, they want to board a plane or board a ferry to come all the way to Malaysia, right? And for that particular journey, they need to be sure that the person they're going to meet, the doctor they're going to meet, the ambience where it happened, provided to them, and also the entire ecosystem has to be something which is satisfying for them enough so they'll come again. So this is what health tourism is, and that's what MHTC is trying to strive to deliver to the people who are coming way far from Malaysia, right? So from MHTC point of view, we work very well, very hard with the service providers. So for us, there's no point of MHTC to exist if you don't get support from the people we work with. So who are our biggest partners? All the hospitals, you know? So the hospitals are amazing in Malaysia. They work very hard, they perform their services, they are filled with doctors of a very high quality, the infrastructure, and the provision of services which make this patient feel welcome. So these are the partners. So from the blueprint point of view, we identified 3 main areas how we actually improve the health tourism, the experience. Number 1 is called ecosystem.
Right.
Ecosystem refer to the person landing in KLI or in Jetty or anywhere, how this person actually is brought back to the hospital. Who do we work with? We don't only work with the hospitals. We work together with, for example, Malaysian airports, right? We work together with the travel agents.
Correct. It's actually an end-to-end experience,
end-to-end
right?
experience.
Yeah.
Number 2, we define the markets. From where are these patients coming from, right? A vast majority, 64% of them come from Indonesia.
Oh, fantastic.
Right.
Of course, one of our nearest neighbors as well.
So usually Indonesia, Malaysia, we are serumpun. They used to work like serumpun. So they feel very comfortable. And they're very comfortable because they feel that coming to Malaysia is part of what they have been accustomed to.
That's
so
right.
they feel that they've been treated with respect and they trust. The issue of trust is very important. The doctors give them the trust they need to be taking care of their healthcare. Number 3, lastly, we look at in terms of branding. So we need to actually define what is Malaysian healthcare. So the way we work is actually to make sure that people feel the element of narration of Malaysian healthcare is presented in a message, in a manner that people understand and would like to come to Malaysia. I will explain to you later on in the subsequent questions.
Exactly. And everything that you have shared with us so far, Dr. Ali, it's really pointing towards why, for example, Hong Leong Investment Bank, Berhad, HLIB Research, they actually have maintained an overweight perspective, quote unquote, towards the resilient long-term growth drivers. So with all of these in place, actually, would you mind sharing with us a little bit more about the flagship medical tourism hospital program? This was also launched sometime last year. Now might be a good time for us to take stock of what has been achieved so far and how you're feeling about the growth.
Okay. Thank you very much for the question. So you see, flagship medical tourism hospital is one manner, methodology that we use to identify which hospital in Malaysia that we can proudly say this the hospital for medical tourism.
Right.
If you were to go to other countries, immediately one particular hospital comes to mind. If you go to Singapore, there is one. If you go to Thailand, there could be another one. Malaysia, when you say which is the best hospital when it comes to medical tourism, there's many. Right. So the idea was, with the working with the government of Malaysia and Ministry of Health especially, we worked together, put our heads together to identify how can we actually come up with a proper methodology, very evidence-based, to actually coach and groom one of the hospitals to be the hospital that we can proudly say this flagship medical tourism hospital. So we started the project in 2022. So 16 hospitals applied. To a series of selection, we identified 4. These 4, actually, number 1 is, the ranking doesn't mean they're number 1, just out of 4. One is Island Hospital from Penang. Number 2, Sam Dabi Medical Center, Subanjaya Medical Center. Number 3 is Mahkota Medical. Number 4, IGN. So now we are at the 3rd phase. Third phase is called acceleration phase, and they are going to be evaluated based on 3 criteria. Number 1 is called medical excellence. They must have services which is par excellence in medical. Benchmarking with the best in the world in terms of any specialty or any subspecialty, and they need to prove to us they have it, and we evaluate them in detail. Number 2, service excellence. The kind of service they provide across the entire ecosystem must be something that we can compare with the best in the world. Number 3 is international branding. It's not only they have to have the medical excellence, service excellence, how they brand themselves. And within the brand, we would like these hospitals to also do clinical research and publish the research so that we can say that the doctors who are performing there are somebody who actually really still working hard to further their interest in a particular field, evidence-based. So this is something we are trying to encourage the doctors in the private hospitals to do, and the hospitals per se as well.
Exactly, and it sounds like the feedback mechanism is important. Because in addition to those who are, of course, are medical tourists for specifically more time-sensitive procedures, there's also wellness tourism. There's also an increase and a growth in, for example, traditional Chinese medicine. And how as such also extremely lucrative and expanding sectors being developed, Dr. Ali?
Tehmina, thank you for the question. MSCC, there's something that we use in MSCC, we call it 145.
Okay.
Okay, maybe I can explain
Absolutely,
a bit.
please.
Okay, one, what's our vision? The vision of MSCC to be the healthcare destination, healthcare travel destination of the world. Means that D means the moment you mention healthcare travel, you think of Malaysia.
Right.
So Malaysia becomes second to none, right? That's the kind of oneness that we want. Number two, we have 4 focus areas. One area is called healthcare. Within healthcare, they are subdivided into 3 areas. One actually is modern medicine, allopathy that we're talking about. I'm a medical doctor, I'm a modern medicine practitioner, so modern medicine, orthopedic and all that. Number 2 is called wellness medicine. So we're working in the sphere of wellness medicine to identify how we actually work together within this sphere so we can showcase to the world that we have this. It's a bit of work because we need to define it and put the parameters well. Number 3 is called TNCM. TNCM stands for traditional and complementary. There are 7 elements within TNCM. Number 1 is called traditional Chinese medicine. Number 2, traditional Indian medicine, Ayurveda.
That's
Number
right.
3, traditional Malay medicine. Number 4, traditional Islamic medicine. Number 5 is homeopathy. Number 5, osteopath. Number 7 actually, and number 6 osteopath. Number 7 actually is chiropractor.
Fantastic.
So
and these are all specific specialties that Malaysia can develop further.
Correct.
Hyper-specialization.
Correct. So we are working together with the traditional and complementary arm of Ministry of Health to doing a survey to identify. We have 2 criteria. Number 1, it has to be hospital-based.
Right.
Because we want to showcase it has to be hospital-based.
So professionalized and covered under Healthcare
So you
Act.
said it well.
Yeah.
I don't have to say anymore. You said it well.
Fantastic. So it's very interesting indeed that that MHTC is also truly supporting the building of these sectors before it becomes something that tourists are necessarily looking for. So we're already an automatic choice.
Correct.
Fantastic. Can we move along now into something a little bit more technical, Dr. Ali,
Correct.
from the medical side? Now, how can health information exchange or HIE gaps be overcome to ensure a smooth transition of healthcare-related data, particularly as especially the private healthcare sector is focusing on digitized records?
Correct. Well, HIE, I think for the benefit of the listeners, health information exchange is more of a methodology. It's a framework where one feels across a particular region, we would like to get all the patient's record to be centralized.
Absolutely.
So, and while centralizing, you want to have comparison of the data set so it's easily understood. So it doesn't means that, for example, we don't want somebody to say heart attack and the other people are saying myocardial infarct. Both means similar, but when it comes to information exchange, it's not similar.
So standardizing terminology,
nomenclature, and all that, right? So this is something. This is like something that everybody aspire their country to have, but there are a lot of challenges into that, because they first and foremost, for you to get a proper exchange, especially how information exchange is, you need to have participants are willing to share data.
That's true. And when I also think of medical tourism specifically, of course, Indonesia, Serumpun, aside from that, what about overcoming the language barrier when it comes to medical records and translating them?
Correct. So when it comes to Indonesia, we have a lot of people come from China. The first half of this year, we have seen a 3-fold increase in Chinese health tourists.
So that may also have something to do with the visa-free.
Visa-free, yeah.
Absolutely.
And a lot of
contributing
the Chinese
positively.
a lot of Chinese tourists comes here for IVF treatment, infertility treatment. So
How
that's
interesting.
that's what we found in the records, in the data that we analyzed the first half. So in terms of interpretive and understanding the culture, we call this in MSCC to an immersive culture experience. It means that the culture the patient's coming from, we need to replicate an environment within the hospital so that the patient feel they are immersed in their own culture. At the same time, we put some of the kebudayaan Malaysia into that. So this comes under our 4th pillar. Remember I told you the 4 focus areas?
That's right.
1 is healthcare, number 2 is clinical offering, number 3 is tourism, number 4 is patient experience. Under the patient experience, this is what we are working together with the hospitals to develop that. So right now, a lot of them are speaking only Bahasa and English.
Understood.
So we are trying to work, we are working together with the hospital to persuade them. The Bahasa Indonesia has to be not simple Bahasa Indonesia. It has to be an all-encompassing kind of a Bahasa Indonesia where the people who are speaking it is somebody who has native speakers. They need to hire these people. We have people, a lot of Bangladeshis are coming, so we need people who can speak the Bengali language, right?
That's right.
Working within the hospital. We are trying to attract Arabs. So we need to get people, not Arabs, Arabics, we have people from Tafiz. A lot of Tafiz students, we can hire them to become interpreter, to give them the immersive culture experience.
Correct. They can be skilled specifically for the medical services sector.
Correct. I'm sure you've seen a lot of people who speak Mandarin in Malaysia.
Absolutely.
There are Indians who speak Mandarin, there are Malays who speak Mandarin, Chinese. Why can't we hire them? So this is what we are working with the hospital. So that will actually provide solution to what are you asking just now.
Exactly. So what I'm actually seeing is that with sufficient collaboration and also intuitiveness to capture markets which are already growing, I think there's plenty of employment opportunities out there, especially for younger Malaysians,
there
right?
There are a lot of employment opportunities actually.
Fantastic. Let's move into another really topical issue, Dr. Ali. We now go on to looking at patients' data privacy when it comes to the healthcare tourism sector. What are some key areas of interest that MHTC actually sees in the path forward, since data privacy is a constant challenge in today's ecosystem?
Actually, in Malaysia, we are actually very well governed, because we can call Act 586, it's Private Healthcare Facilities and Services Act. There's a subsection 115.115, which talks about patient confidentiality, which is require everybody working in the hospital to honor the fact that this is patient confidentiality, secrecy, we can't reveal, right? And we also have PDPA, Personal Data Protection Act, which also talks about the similar thing. So, end of the day, in any hospital transaction, the patient consent is very important. So the patient must consent that this data is kept by the hospital. There's always a consent form. And the Act 586 talks about informed consent. So the patient must be full aware and understand why the data is being kept, why the information is being sought, and why it's being kept. So how it's going to be managed and handled. So all this is well taken care of by the government within the Act itself.
And any thoughts, Dr. Ali, on how generative AI, Gen AI, and also big data is playing a role in ensuring that data privacy parameters are actually matching up to global standards in Malaysia?
Correct. So generative AI, I think by definition, generative AI is talking about using machine language, using existing data to generate new data which is related back to the existing data. It's different from predictive, right?
Very true.
So when it comes to generative AI, in terms of medicine, so what we're trying to do is, there are a lot of areas where people are trying to work out certain models for it. For example, a person comes to see a doctor, he or she may have certain condition, maybe a 40 years old, with a tendency to have diabetes. And now he's coming with weakness, right?
Right.
So using generative AI, the doctor would actually have some indication with the help of a decision support system to actually come up with a provisional diagnosis or how to manage that particular patient at that level. So you are not using other data, you're using the patient's data.
Their own data, but in a customized
manner. When it comes to big data, most of the time, most of the hospitals or most of the informatics organization they actually strip away all the patient identifiers, right? So you don't have the data referring back to a single person, right? But then again, the issue of consent is very important. The patient should know that the data will be used from that angle, right? So that's something that people must be aware of. I don't think a lot of organizations are aware of this. When you go to government, it's different. So when you go to government clinics, right, the data is owned by the patient, owned by the government. So the government have a right to take the data and make it, and with the consent of the patient, actually use it for predictive analysis. For example, they need to know in a particular town or area in Malaysia, there's a lot of hypertension or diabetes, so they can allocate the right resources.
Exactly.
If they don't have...
Especially given our pretty heavy NCD burdens, right?
Correct. Yeah. And coming back to the discussion we had earlier, where there's proper allocation of resources, right? If you don't have this kind of data analytics, right, how are we going to make policy decisions? So from the government angle is there, but the worrying part is how from the private side they're going to manage it. So from MHTC point of view, when you have an engagement with the CEOs of the hospitals, when you have engagement with our counterparts, we always the discussion of patient confidentiality, patient confidentiality, data confidentiality comes. So we always tell them that this act governs all of you, so to be very careful.
Exactly.
And the patient actually owns the data. So you have to ask his opinion and permission for you to actually
informed
use.
Consent, basically.
Correct.
Absolutely. And because we are on the issue of also allocation and provision, I would be remiss not to ask you and ask for a quick comment, Dr. Ali, on how best we can also look at allocating adequately within the public healthcare sector.
Correct.
Because it's also true at the same time, not only the rakyat of Malaysia, but also there are medical tourists who come in who also may be wishing to utilize the public healthcare facilities.
Correct.
And keeping up with actually some of the topical issues which include chronic staffing allocation.
Correct. So when it comes to, I think I may not be the right person to talk about the government aspects, but if I can share some insight from the private side. Right?
Most certainly,
so
yes.
You see, in Malaysia, one thing good, one thing amazing about Malaysia, the way they actually manages the private hospitals is that there's a specified ratio which actually identify. For example, if you want to open an ICU, right, you need to have a ICU trained nurse per bed, right? If you want to open a medical ward, so you need to have a ratio of 1 staff nurse per certain number of beds, right? So because of that, when the private hospitals want to open additional ward, when they want to open additional building, for example, they want to build a new 16-story or 17-story, they're very careful. So they may want to build that 16-story, but when they want to open it up, they don't open the whole 16-story. So they work together very carefully, plan properly their human resource development. So they may actually, before even building the hospital, they may send a bunch of nurses to go for training, general degree. They may even send some nurses for post-basics. So they have maybe 3 to 5 year plan. So as and when the building comes up, they have the right amount of nurses to manage certain floors with the building. May not be open all, right? So that's how, from the private point of view, we manage resource allocation and provision of services.
Absolutely. And I think that is so valuable because that example of a learning curve ought to be emulated so that we can hopefully overcome the perception of the shortages by better allocation.
I think you used the right word. It's better allocation of resources.
Fantastic. Dr. Ali, perhaps we can end out with a discussion on looking at the existing infrastructure around healthcare tourism. We're talking about accommodation, transportation, because this is also the spillover effect, and how that can be perhaps better harmonized as we are moving towards attracting even more medical tourists with regards to moving into 2025.
Right. I think one of the, if I can say, I've been in the company for 9 months now. So what I learn and what I value from our partners is, from the hospital point of view, so they're actually providing the best kind of service for the health tourists. But there's an entire ecosystem surrounding it. So when the patient comes to the hospital where the patients are being managed, I think we are okay at that level. And of course, they're developing it further. But the challenge we have is, when how is the patients coming to the hospital? The flight, because some of the target markets, they don't have the connecting flight. And that's an issue we have to discuss. Number 2, when they arrive in Malaysia, how are they being managed from the immigration point of view and all that?
Fair enough. Is there support at every step of the way?
Yeah, so for us, MSTC, we have something called meet and greet services. The moment patient land, we have somebody waiting for them outside the boarding gate, outside the exit gate. Then we bring them through a fast lane immigration all the way to where they want to go. So we have that capability in 2 of the airports in Malaysia, which is KLA1, KLA2, right? So the other challenge we have is we have 1.4 million people coming to the hospitals, including their relatives. You can times by 3, easily around 7 million, right?
Fair enough, yes.
But the challenge is, who's actually taking care of them? Who's bringing them around to see the attraction in Malaysia? There's health, there's tourism. The tourism aspect. So this next couple of months or 1 or 2 years, especially for incoming Visit Malaysia 2026, we'll have to work more closer to with the tourist agents, with MOTAC, to make sure that these people are brought rightly, maybe to see all the attraction in Malaysia. And lastly, if I can end, you see, we are living in Malaysia. Kebudayaan Malaysia is fantastic. We have so many ethnicities, right? Why is it not brought to the hospitals? So what we're going to do, we're going to have, I got to share this, tomorrow we're going to have an inaugural session where we are working with Prince Court Medical Center.
Right.
We are bringing culture of Malaysia into hospital. So we're going to have a small session, call all the health tourists who are patients there and all the patients. We're going to have Persembahan Malaysia. So in the next 2 years, we're going to do many of those. So we're going to work with all the other hospitals. We're going to bring Malaysian culture, Malaysian Malay culture, Malaysian other ethnicity culture, Malaysian Chinese culture, Malaysian Indian culture, maybe even a wayang kulit in the lobby of the hospital. So that we need to include, this comes under our number 3, which is tourism. This is where we're going to infuse our kebudayaan into that. So this is what we want to do.
I think it actually sounds like the opportunity has not even been explored 20% perhaps for it to actually be maximized, right?
Synergy. We are talking about synergy. So synergy will maximize, will make it not 1 + 1, not going to be 2. It's going to be multiples of 2. So this is what we are our way forward. This is how we're going to augment and coordinate to make sure this thing happens.
Exactly, because we're not only looking at an ecosystem being organic, but being quite intentional moving forward.
It has to be deliberately planned.
Absolutely. So, Dr. Ali, there's actually so much more that we could discuss, but in a nutshell, perhaps if I could give you the space to just describe what are your hopes moving forward towards the rest of the year and to the completion of 2025.
Okay. I think thank you very much firstly for Niaga Spotlight and Tehmina for giving me this opportunity. From MSCC point of view, we are really, all of us came back and working together with the agency because we want to build Malaysia. So we are very proud of what we have. We are one of the best doctors. We are some of the best doctors in the world. And doctors are very well trained. And they are working in a setup which is amazing infrastructure. Because we do research, we are able to bring forth the new drugs faster in Malaysia compared to everybody else.
Fair enough.
Our medical outcome, you get treated in Perlis, you get treated in Sabah. The medical outcome is similar because we govern the outcome, we govern the doctors, right? A lot of hospitals are actually accredited internationally by JCI, locally by MSQH. Most important, Malaysian, we are very warm, we smile. Malaysian hospitality, we don't like to fight with our team. This binds everything together. So in coming years and in the future, we have all these, we can actually harmonize, synergize to make it to be a real growth sector for Malaysian economy.
Absolutely.
That's what we want to
Not
do.
just in post-pandemic years, but for every year moving forward.
For every year, inshallah.
Thank you. Thanks very much for being with us here on Niaga Spotlight.
Thank you, Tehmina, for this wonderful opportunity.
Absolutely. Well, that's all we have time for today on Niaga Spotlight. I'm Tehmina Kaoosji signing off for now. We'll see you again next week with more business analysis and insights. Here's to a productive week ahead.
Kongsi satu dagupan unik.
Tak pergi Dataran Merdeka, tengok perakan Hari Kebangsaan.